What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be checking out the part 2 of what every country in Europe is worst at. I'll put the link down in the description for the part 1 and maybe in the comments if you're interested to check it out. Let's get right into it.
Let's kick things off with Latvia, which has plenty of potatoes but doesn't have plenty of men.
What?
Latvia has the least
Amount of men, but they have the most potatoes, or they have plenty of potatoes. Okay.
amount of men per capita in Europe, with only 0.86 men in the country for every one woman.
Wow.
Liechtenstein is technically
To be fair, as a man, is that really a bad thing? I mean, if you're in that country, if you're a Latvian, you guys are having a ball.
the least visited country in Europe, but that's mostly just because it's so small. They only received 69,000 visitors in 2017. Lithuania is actually tied precisely with Latvia for having the least amount of men in the country. There are 16% more women in both Lithuania and Latvia than men. For being so tiny, Luxembourg is actually the worst in Europe at a lot of things. For starters, they have the largest ecological footprint of any country in the entire world. The average Luxembourger has double the ecological footprint of the average American. Luxembourg produces the most CO2 emissions per capita of any country in Europe. They have the world's highest divorce rate at roughly 87% of marriages ending in—
What the hell? What? Wait, guys, you know why this is so funny to me? I keep seeing on social media platforms, Americans always bringing up their 50% divorce rates, how terrible it is, how terrible it is, which is terrible. Actually, it's very, very terrible. It's not a good statistics at all. Like, if I were in the US, with that statistics, I'll probably not marry, especially if my money is at risk. But Lithuania, like, this is crazy. It's something percent. What?
Europe, they have the world's highest divorce rate at roughly 87% of marriages ending in one, and they have the highest rent found anywhere in Europe and the third highest in the entire world. The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in the city center is over 1,500 euros a month. Malta is Europe's hottest country, with an average yearly temperature of 19.2 degrees Celsius. It's also Europe's most religious country, excluding the Vatican, with 86% of the population saying that religion is important to their lives, and which makes Malta roughly just as religious as Estonia is irreligious. Malta also has Europe's lowest literacy rate, with 6.7% of the population over 15 not being able to read or write. Moldova has a lot of issues. According to the IMF, Moldova has the lowest GDP per capita of any country in Europe at only $3,300 per citizen. Moldova also has the highest rate of deurbanization in the world, with a city growth rate of negative 1.5% on average per year. Moldova is also truly Europe's least visited country, since they only received 145,000 visitors for all of 2017, which is only one tourist for every 24 citizens in the country. People just don't ever come to visit Moldova, and for decent reasons. It has the worst access to improved sanitation facilities in Europe, with only 76% of the population having access to a toilet. And it also has Europe's highest amount of child labor, with 24.3% of the children in the country taking part in the labor force, according to UNICEF. Monaco has the lowest percentage of young people in the world, with the average age of their citizens being 52.4 years. They also spend the least on education in Europe, with only 1.5% of Monaco's GDP being—
I've never really regarded Monaco as a country. Really, I won't lie to you guys. I've always just looked at Monaco as part of France. That's just me. That's just me. I know it's a country, but that's just how I feel about it.
Excluding the tiny city-states of Liechtenstein and San Marino, Montenegro has Europe's shortest, tallest building. The tallest building in the country is only 65 meters tall, which is even shorter than the tallest buildings of Andorra, Monaco, Vatican City, and Malta. The Netherlands has the highest rate of wealth inequality not only in Europe, but in the entire world. The top 1% of Dutch citizens own more than 1/3 of all the private wealth in the country. The Netherlands also has the most disappointing record in the FIFA World Cup.
That is true.
Since they've gotten the runner-up place 3 times now and have yet to ever actually win, the highest number of runner-ups without a victory of any country in the world.
Yeah.
North Macedonia has an even worse track record in sports, however, because they have Europe's worst performance at the Olympics, having only ever won a single bronze medal for wrestling back in the 2000 Games at Sydney. Norway doesn't really have many bad things to say about it, but I guess they do have Europe's most expensive beer and petrol prices at nearly €7 for a pint of beer and nearly €2 for a liter of petrol. Theoretically, Poland has the most restrictive abortion laws anywhere in Europe. I say theoretically because Vatican City, Malta, San Marino, and Andorra all have more restrictions than Poland do, but they're also all very tiny countries, whereas Poland has the most restrictions of any European nation state and more than anywhere else besides those 4 tiny countries. They are restricted only to cases where the mother's life is in danger, mental or physical health, rape, and/or fetal defects. Portugal has Europe's highest high school dropout rate, with only 60% of the population having completed secondary education. And according to a poll by AirHelp, the lowest rated airport in the entire world is also in Portugal, Lisbon Portela Airport. Romania has the lowest amount in Europe, while Russia has a lot of problems. I could make an entire video just about all of the problems Russia has, but here's the quick version. They have the worst traffic in Europe and Europe's most dangerous roads with the highest number of average traffic deaths. They have the highest suicide rate in all of Europe and the highest for men specifically in the entire world. They have Europe's highest incarceration rate with 363 prisoners per 100,000 people. Russia is the most corrupt country in Europe according to Transparency International. They have the highest rate of opiate usage in Europe and the 3rd highest in the world at 1.64% of the population actively using. They have the highest rate of HIV infection in Europe at 1.2% of the population, and have Europe's highest homicide rate. You're 8 times more likely to be murdered in Russia than you are in Germany. Russia has the lowest minimum wage in Europe at just 66 US cents per hour. And according to the Gay Travel Index, Russia is also by far the most unfriendly country in Europe towards LGBT people and among the worst places in the entire world to live as an LGBT person, on a par with Afghanistan or Libya. Moving on, San Marino is the most difficult country in Europe to conduct business in according to the Ease of Doing Business Index, and it's the least linguistically diverse country in Europe as well. Serbia has the worst gun problem in Europe, with Europe's highest firearm-related death rate. Slovakia has the lowest voter turnout of any country in Europe, with only 23% of eligible voters in the country actually voting in the last European Parliament elections in 2019, which is a much lower turnout than even Americans had in the 2016 presidential election that saw 55% turnout. People just don't vote in Slovakia, but in addition to that, Slovakia is also probably Europe's most racist country. A study conducted by the European Commission in 2015 asked people in EU member states how they would feel about their children dating somebody from a different background, and Slovakia gave back the most prejudiced results, with very high majorities of people saying that they wouldn't be comfortable with it. I couldn't find anything that Slovenia was the worst at other than being confused for Slovakia all the time. So, great job, guys. Other than Russia, Spain has the highest number of active separatist movements in Europe, with 12 ongoing, some of which have pretty widespread support. At least 42% of the population in Catalonia favors independence. 33% of the population in the Basque Country do as well, and around 25% of the population in Galicia. Spain is perhaps the least likely country in Europe to survive in her current borders by the end of the 21st century. Weirdly, Sweden has the highest number of grenade and bomb attacks anywhere in Europe, with over 100 such attacks taking place in 2019 alone.
Well, I thought Sweden is a very peaceful country, like with very low crime rates. Wow, I'm surprised by that.
Switzerland has the lowest rate of home ownership in Europe at only 43.4% of the population actually owning theirs. Perhaps this is because Switzerland is also the most expensive country in the entire world to live in. They have the world's highest cost of living, highest priced restaurants, highest priced groceries, and highest priced mobile data anywhere in the world. Zurich and Geneva are both the most expensive cities to live anywhere in Europe and among the highest priced cities anywhere in the world. Turkey has the lowest level of English proficiency in Europe at only 47% of the population. That's still kind of a lot. Anyway, Turkey also has the lowest freedom of the press score in Europe, the highest number of journalists imprisoned anywhere in the world, Europe's highest obesity rate at 32% of the population,
Wow,
the
I'm
lowest
surprised by
overall
that.
gender equality score in Europe, and according to the Fragile States Index, Turkey is also Europe's least stable country with the highest number of terrorist incidents of any country with land on the continent. Ukraine has Europe's lowest birth rate, at only 1.3 children per one woman in the country being the average. They also have Europe's lowest life expectancy at only 72 years, which is over a decade lower than Italians with 83.6 years. Men in Ukraine only have life expectancies of 67 years, which is on a par with men in Pakistan or Syria. And according to the same World Happiness Report that rated Finland as the world's happiest country, they also rated Ukraine as Europe's least happy. They have the lowest amount of internet users in Europe, with only 57% of the population being connected. Ukrainian citizens are also the poorest in all of Europe, with the average Ukrainian only having a mean net worth of $8,792 US, which is poorer than the average citizen of Kenya or Nicaragua is.
What the hell?
Complete
I didn't know Ukraine was that backward. Seriously. I always looked at Ukraine as like, before this war started, I always looked at them as, Russia's junior brother or something like that. I know that sounds bad now, but that's how I used to look at them. Because, I think they're kind of related in terms of race and all that stuff. But I'm actually surprised that they have so many bad metrics like that. Seriously, I'm actually surprised.
opposite side of the spectrum, the United Kingdom has the highest usage of cocaine anywhere in the world, with roughly 2.7% of adults who actively use it. And finally, Vatican City is the final and sole surviving absolute monarchy in Europe, which pretty much by default makes it the least democratic country in Europe. And now that you've made it this far, getting through me telling you what your favorite
Is Vatican really a country though?
countries in Europe are the worst at, I think you deserve a reward.
Wow, those were some interesting facts there. I was actually thinking like, what the hell? Like there's some things that I was shocked by. I was shocked that Portugal had the worst airport in the whole of Europe. I've never looked at Portugal as one of the lower countries in Europe. I've always looked at Portugal as one of the, top countries in Europe. Isn't Portugal part of the G7 or G something, one of those G stuff? They are now, right? Why would they have the worst airports in Europe? Also, the Ukraine stuff, I'm actually surprised by how poor they were. Seriously, I'm really surprised. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Check out the part 1 if you have not checked it out already. Like the video as well. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.